Hi all, welcome back to the channel Learning Literature Online. If you didn't subscribe this channel, please subscribe it and hit the bell icon so that you won't miss the future updates from this channel. Today we are going to discuss one of the prominent period in English literature, that is Age of Romanticism. Age of Romanticism is a literary movement in English literature, and there can be seen a profound shift in sensibility as it is been compared to the previous period, that is Age of Sensibility or Restoration period. And this period, the Romantic movement took place in Britain and throughout Europe from 1770 to 1848. Beginning of Romanticism can be seen dated as in 1785, as it is the end of Age of Sensibility, or alternatively in 1789, as during this year took place the outbreak of the French Revolution, so it is 1789, or in 1798, as the year is the year of publication of William Wordsworth's and Samuel Taylor Coleridge's lyrical ballads. So the beginning of Romantic period is dated in 1785, or alternatively in 1789 or 1798, and the period ends in 1830 or in 1832, as the first year 1830 is in which Sir Walter Scott died, and in 1832 took place the passage of the Reform Bill, which signalled the political preoccupation of Victorian era, or it is been said as the period ends in 1837 as Queen Victoria became the Queen of Britain or England. The political and economical atmosphere had a deep influence on development of this Romantic period. The period or the Romanticism had found inspiration from French Revolution, and it has also took inspiration from Agricultural Revolution and Industrial Revolution. It was a revolt against this Agricultural Revolution and Industrial Revolution. Romanticism was a reaction against the spread of industrialism as well as a criticism of the aristocratic social and political norms and a call for more attention to the nature. It was a reaction against the spread of industrialism and mechanization, as well as it was a criticism of the aristocratic and political norms that was prevalent during the previous period. and it was a call for more attention to the nature. Intellectually, the period marked a violent reaction against the age of enlightenment, and politically, it was inspired by the revolutions in America and France and popular wars of independence across Europe. And emotionally, it expressed an extreme assertion of individuality and self, and it had a deep value for individual experience together with the sense of the infinite and transcendental. The Romanticism had gave a deep emphasis on individuality and emotions. Writers of this time did not think of themselves as romantics. Victorian writers later classified them in this way because of their ability to capture the emotion and tenderness of man. Victorian writers classified them as romantics because of their ability to capture the emotions and tenderness of man. Definitions of Romanticism: literature depicting emotional matter in an imaginative form. Romanticism is literature depicting emotional matter in an imaginative form. This is liberalism in literature. Liberalism in literature, it was reaction against set rules. So, they advocated breaking the rules and liberalism in literature. Imagination, emotion, and freedom were the central points of Romanticism. Romanticism stresses on self-expression and individuality. Stresses on self-expression and individuality. Now we are going to test what are the major differences between Romantic age and Classical age. Romanticism is a shift from faith in reason to faith in senses, feelings, and imagination. During Classical age, it was faith in reason, and it shifted to faith in senses, feelings, and imagination during Romantic age. There can be seen a shift from interest in urban society to the rural and natural. See, during Classical age, interest was in urban society, and there took place a shift from this interest in urban society to the rural and natural during Romantic period. And there can be seen a public impersonal poetry to subjective poetry. Poetry during Classical age was public and impersonal, and during Romantic age it became subjective poetry. Concern with scientific mundane to interest in mysterious and infinite. During Classical age, concern of poetry was with the scientific and mundane realities, and during the Romantic period it became mysterious and infinite. Concern of poetry became interest became in mysterious and infinite. characteristics of Romanticism. Here we are going to discuss major characteristics of Romanticism. One of the major characteristics is subjectivity. All Romantic literature is subjective. It is an expression of the inner urges of the soul of the artist. Here, the artist is trying to express the inner urges of his soul. The poet does not care for rules and regulations but give free expression to his emotion, so it is subjective. Then second characteristic is spontaneity. Romantic poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. The romantic poet is gifted with a strong organic sensibility. Then third point is love of supernatural. The romantic is extraordinary relief to the wonder, mystery and beauty of the universe. Their eyes are open to the wonder and mystery and beauty of the universe. He feels the presence of an unseen power in nature. He feels the presence of an unseen power in nature. Then next quality or characteristic is melancholy. A romantic is dissatisfied individual. He may be dissatisfied with the circumstances of his own life or his age or with literary conventions and traditions of the day or with the general fate of humanity. So, romantic poetry will be therefore often pessimistic in tone. The next point is love of nature. Still, many others may escape into nature. Zest for beauties of the external world characterizes all romantic poetry. So, in the writings of the romantic poets, a love towards nature and love of nature can be seen. The next point is emphasis on the inherent dignity and nobility of man. Emphasis on inherent dignity and nobility of man, as Romanticism gave emphasis on individuality, individual aspects of a person. Man, love of nature leads by an easy transition to the love of those who live in her lap. They had an instinct for elemental simplicities of life. And Romanticism was a revolt against artificiality, all kinds of artificiality. It stands for simplicity in theme and treatment. Not only do the romantics treat of the common man, they also use his language for their purpose. They use language of common man for their purposes. And there can be seen an interest in the past. Their interest in the past leads the romantics to experiment with all the meters and poetic form. Then another characteristic of romanticism is common man and childhood are their central point of treatment. Then freedom from rules. They are against the set rules, and break from set rules can be seen in Romanticism. And glorification of nature, as they advocate return to the nature and those around. And awareness and acceptance of emotions. Romanticism is subjective and they give proper prominence and awareness and acceptance of human emotions. They are ready to accept emotions of persons, and celebration of artistic creativity and imagination, other than giving more consideration for wisdom, intellectuality, and those. Here romantic poets give more importance for artistic creativity and imagination. And next point is emphasis on aesthetic beauty. Emphasis on aesthetic beauty than intellectual development. They focus on exoticism and history, and spiritual elements can be seen in the writings of Romantic writers, and vivid sensory descriptions can be seen in their works. In their works, they use vivid sensory descriptions. Then major poets of this period are one William Blake, is also a mystic poet. Then William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. These two writers had published lyrical ballads, which was marked as the beginning of Romanticism. Then Robert Southey, then Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley, then John Keats. These are the major poets of the period Romanticism. Characteristics of Romantic poetry: break from set rules. We have already mentioned they were advocating liberalism in literature. So they were not ready to adhere to the rules, set rules, and they advocated break from set rules. The poetry of the Romantic revival is in direct contrast to the characteristics cultivated by 18th century neoclassical poets or the age of sensibility and interest in country life. They gave proper interest in country life, and in Romantic poetry, country life can be seen. Presentation of common life. Romantic poets started taking interest in the lives of common people, shepherds and the cottagers, and left the gallant lords and gay butterflies of fashion to the care of novelists. They had given interest in common people, shepherds and cottagers, and avoided gallant lords and gay butterflies of fashion to the care of novelists. Then love of liberty and freedom. Emphasis was laid on liberty and freedom, as it is the first point itself. They had advocated break from set rules and escape to the Middle Ages. Some Romantic poets felt chafed with tyranny, squalor and ugliness of materialistic life of their age, and to avoid this life of uneasy restlessness, they sought that poetry can escape from the carrying cares and corroding anxieties of the world to a world of beauty and joy. The next point is predominance of imagination and emotion. In Romantic writings, we can see predominance of imagination and emotions. Then supernaturalism. Supernaturalism is another outstanding quality of Romantic poetry. Then not of subjectivity. Subjectivity began to have its full play in the poetry of Romantic period. Endless variety in Romantic poetry. See, variety of themes can be seen in Romantic poetry. And the next point is lyricism. In Romantic poetry, lyricism predominates, and the poets of this school have to their credit a number of fine lyrics. Then simplicity in style. These are the characteristics of the Romantic poetry. The Romantic poets can be termed as the younger romantics, and it includes Shelley, Keats and Byron. All were younger than the other major romantics and all died young. And another group of poets were first generation poets, included William Blake, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Then another group of poets are late poets, which included William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Robert Southey, who lived in English Lake District. Prose writers of this period include Charles Lamb, Thomas De Quincey, Leigh Hunt, then William Hazlitt. Novelists of this period include Jane Austen, Walter Scott, and this is a short explanation of Age of Romanticism. Thank you.